Hello, everybody. My name is Helen Tran. I'm design lead of App Platform.
Hi there, I'm Luke Reeves. I'm one of the developer leads at Shopify.
We're going to talk to you today about building marketplaces and sales channel apps. If you have any questions during our presentation, feel free to put it into the app, and we'll address it later after our presentation. So first, what is a sales channel application? So it's a little bit different than all of our other applications. One way to look at it is it's a way for merchants to show their merchandise. Another way. So online store was one way, and it was the first one we started with. But now we have Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, and Amazon. And you can find all of those products available now. So why did we build sales channel apps for merchants? They amplify sales. So one day, we hope that our merchants will be able to choose from hundreds of different apps based on the data we know about our merchants' merchandise and the data that we know about the network. We compare them together. So based on income level, demographic of the products, we compare them with the audience of the network and basically direct the right customer directly to the merchant without them having to find it. So instead of them hoping that they get the right customer, they'll be able to find their audience directly and easily be able to market to them. So this all sounds great for our merchants, but why should you care about creating sales channel apps? So number one, you get to tap into our network of approximately 400,000 merchants, and you skip right over the supply side commerce problems. So you get millions of products from day one, and they're all unique. Number two, all orders from the sales channel apps end up in Shopify and fit into the existing daily operations of the merchants. You don't have to build any product or order management tools because we do it for you. Number three, you get access to our checkout API. So it enables you to create transactions directly with the merchant's existing gateway. So not only do you not have to build product or order management tools, you also do not have to build payment remittance services. So why build on Shopify platforms? All three of these things have to do with time. So you've saved tons and tons of time. In terms of immeasurable things, you get our merchants' trust and a starting inventory. So you get to focus on monetization, and we do the rest for you. So let's walk through the merchant life cycle and what they experience when they're installing a sales channel app. So here's home. We'll suggest some sales channels for them based on what we know about their inventory. In this particular case, we know they're an art and photography store. Why not try Buy Button or Facebook? It's great for your product. They can also find sales channel recommendations in our sales channel modal, which is directly in the admin, or they can go to the App Store for the full collection. Your app will then send feedback to Shopify to let merchants know of any connection errors. Hopefully there are none. That's successful, and they can go ahead and sell right on Facebook. Your app will then display the products directly through the network's interface. So here's the products displaying on Pinterest UI. There's no Shopify UI, so it's kind of a seamless experience if you're on Pinterest. The merchant's customers will then be able to purchase these products using the gateway that the merchant has set up. In this particular case, this is Pinterest native checkout. These purchases then create orders in the Shopify's merchant admin, and they can see them amongst all of their other orders, so it doesn't disrupt their current operations. In the end, the customers will receive any notifications directly from the merchant. I'm sure you all have seen an email notification before, but right now it's also possible to send notifications through Messenger. So we can talk about our available channels now, and I'll talk through the two biggest buckets that we're seeing so far. So we have the first row here, which is the Shopify built sales channels: online store, POS, Buy Button, mobile buy. The next line, then we partnered with these Amazon and Facebook and Pinterest to create the next sales channels. And then our first beta partners, Winilo, Ebates, and House, started building their own. And now we have developers like you building sales channels, curate, and see it, buy it. So the two biggest buckets we have are marketplaces and brand focused. So marketplaces are where products are sitting beside other products sold by other merchants. So the focus is actually on the product itself and perhaps the variety of products, maybe the selling price point. And the second category is brand focused. So a good way to look at that is what's pushed forward is the merchant's marketing initiatives, not necessarily their products. So they're spending a lot of time talking to their customers directly, talking to them about the lifestyle, and product is kind of like a secondary focus. So I'm going to walk you through Facebook, which is one of our sales channels, and it's an interesting example because it has both a marketplace and a brand-focused experience. So after a merchant clicks on the install button, either in the mobile or in the App Store, they'll go through the OAuth process, which I'm sure you've seen before, and connect their Facebook account to Shopify. We'll give them an app grant screen. So the app grant screen tells them about any permissions that they're giving to the app, as well as any billing information that they need to know about. In this case, Facebook is free, so there's no billing information here. However, we do have sales channels that have commission-based billing models, so that's where this would be surfaced up to the merchant. Developers can then provide settings for a merchant to decide how they want to configure it. So sometimes they're pretty simple, yes or no, enable, disable. However, they can get more complex, and I'll walk you through a more complex example. Facebook storefront is pretty minimal and pretty simple. So this is it's just 3 settings. So on the customer standpoint, this is what they see. You will have seen Facebook page before. So what's different now is that there's a new widget in the middle of the page that shows them featured products from that store. They'll also get a new navigation item on the left-hand side that says Shop, and then a Shop Now button. When they click on either of those 2 things, they'll see all of the merchants' products in the Facebook UI organized by their collections, and the merchants can kind of choose the order of the collections as well as what type of products appear on their Facebook page. Facebook orders these products based on what they know about the user. So if they know that you're likely to purchase one of these products, they'll push it forward into the carousel. You can then click on any of these products and you see similar to a product single on the online store, product description, pricing, and shipping information. Once you add it to the cart and click checkout, you'll get Facebook native checkout. So the customer doesn't have to leave Facebook at all in order to buy products from the merchant. We'll then send out an email on behalf of the merchant, giving the customer order information, confirmation, and letting them know of any tracking on their shipment. So I'm going to walk you through the other half, which is Messenger, which is more the brand-focused experience. So again, you'll go through the OAuth flow similar to Facebook and all of our other sales channels. Then you'll see the app grant screen again, letting them know of any permissions and billing details. So you can see it's very consistent experience for all of our sales channels available. And here's an example of more complex setup screen. So Messenger is a really interesting sales channel. We've set up a bunch of default bot messages that the merchants can respond to the customer, but we also give them full customization. So if your brand is a little bit more cheeky, you can feel free to add in a little bit of personality into messages, and we'll send them to the customer on your behalf. Messenger is really set up well for customer experience. So it can help convince customers to buy if they're kind of on the fence, but it gives them a direct line to the merchant if they have any questions, like, hey, do you have any Chihuahua sizes? If the customer is persuaded after this conversation to buy directly from the merchant, they can. And they don't have to go through the Facebook store. They can just do it directly in Facebook Messenger. So they can click through this, and they'll get Shopify checkout. Another interesting thing about Messenger is that you can turn off email notifications, and from the customer point of view, you can ask for Messenger notifications on your orders. So you'll receive all of the communication through Messenger itself for up-to-date information. And whether the merchant receives the order through Facebook Store or Messenger, what they'll see in their orders index will be the same. And if they click in further, we provide some order attribution on the order single, so they understand a little bit more about their sales funnel. So after going through the building of a bunch of channels, we can give you 3 big tips on how to build a successful one. So number 1, successful channels take less time to set up. So a lot of those options were, as I said, or a lot of those configurations were optional. They don't have to fill that in order to continue selling. And we found this to be greatly a big time saver, and we've all heard it, time is money, and it really does apply here. Number 2, successful channels use our UI patterns. So you've heard Monica and Kyle talk about it earlier today, Polaris. These UX patterns have been tested by our own user experience team, so you don't have to do it yourself. Luke will also talk briefly about the EA SDK, which is kind of paired with our design system. And number 3, successful channels provide help on how to optimize. So Facebook, for example, has a great series of videos on how to optimize Facebook ads, and we found that to be really helpful for merchants who really want to optimize the Facebook experience. So next I'm going to pass you off to Luke, who's going to talk about the APIs that power all of the things I talk about.
Great, thanks, Helen. So, as Helen mentioned, click. Thank you. I'm here to talk about the Channels SDK, which is kind of a bundle of all the different APIs that comprise the channel building experience. So everything Helen showed you has been built internally using the Channels SDK. We don't have any hidden APIs or anything like that. These were built with the tools available to you today. The life cycle of a channel mirrors exactly what Helen covered. First off, a merchant will install the channel. An application that gets installed can actually send some feedback to Shopify to say if the installation was successful or not. Next, a merchant will publish products to that channel. So you've seen probably in the admin, there's a product publishing modal at the top right. This lets you select which channels a product will go to. Next, hopefully, customers will purchase some of those products. And then orders are created in the Shopify admin. Again, the merchant themselves never has to leave the admin tool. They get all the orders centralized in one system. Finally, fulfillments and notifications happen. These don't necessarily have to ever talk to your channel application, but you will get webhook callbacks to let you know that these things are happening anyway. So creating a channel application is pretty straightforward using the new Partners dashboard that we showed off today. Registered applications can provide features to the merchant. One of the features is channel purchasing experiences. This means that your application is going to be the target of product publications and will sell products on behalf of the merchant. There are 2 ways of actually surfacing the web app part of your channel to the merchant. What we call the 2 methods are embedded and non-embedded. So the EA SDK stands for Embedded Application Software Development Kit. When you use that, that gives you a direct in Shopify admin experience for the merchant. We found that that's very much important, as reducing any friction for the merchant jumping between apps and channel apps makes for a better experience. You can see here that this is the EA SDK embedding the Facebook app. So the app itself lives in this section, and then the Shopify navigation is on the left. You can also annotate the navigation with your own app links, which I think Kyle and Monica talked about a bit in their Q&A. Just worth mentioning that the app pages themselves are still hosted by you, the channel developers, not by Shopify. So when the channel is actually installed, I mentioned that there could be some feedback sent to Shopify. Usually there's some configuration that's necessary for a channel to work. In Helen's Facebook examples, you'll always need a connected Facebook account. We've built a new API called the Resource Feedback API. And one of the things that gives you is the ability to tell Shopify when the channel or application itself was configured successfully or when it wasn't. For example, with Facebook, you'll be able to send a message to Shopify saying, whoa, this isn't going to work until you have a Facebook account. And it looks like this in our admin. The merchant will see exactly what's wrong with the apps being installed, and they'll have a call to action directly there to jump into the relevant app and finish their configuration. So in our example here, both Facebook and Pinterest need a bit more configuration before they work. Next, when you're actually installed, you're publishing products, as I mentioned. This dialog here shows which channels are available for a product and which are the targets of publication. So this allows the merchant, again, to choose the subset of channels for their products to be published on. Our products and products listing API. I'm not sure why that's cut off, but trust me, it's there. This is like a set of REST endpoints that allows you, the developer, a view into that subset of the merchant's shop. There are a couple patterns of use here. Often, applications will use the product listings API and corresponding webhooks to synchronize the products to their own database. But additionally, you can also use real-time selections to surface them to the customer a little bit quicker. For example, custom storefronts in iOS or Android can do this. And they do that through our new storefront API. So the storefront API was actually covered this morning in the keynotes, which was awesome. This is our brand new GraphQL-based system that allows sales apps access to the products. So apps running in your browser with JavaScript, running with the Unity Buy SDK that we just saw, they will actually call the new storefront API using GraphQL to get the product listings. If you're interested in that, there's a link in our resources slide near the end where you can get some more details. But back to the products themselves. So much like the channel itself could have feedback, publishing products can also raise issues. For example, many sales channels have their own unique requirements and restrictions on what can be sold. Similar to the shop feedback, we've provided a mechanism for you to show that product level feedback to the merchant. Did that highlight? So at the top here, you can see that the Facebook app has called out, and Winella, has called out that the product could not be published to them, and they can see more information in the shop. So a good example of this is if your channel is providing some kind of manual review process where you're only approving certain apps, or certain products, or possibly just denying certain products. Or you could have something automatically approving and rejecting products. For example, you might look for geo-targeting or currency of the shop, things like that. One other example we've seen with some of our existing channels is you might be building a streetwear-focused channel application and reject non-clothing items. There's one additional way to provide feedback for the products. We call this required fields. Using that resource feedback API, you can actually provide a schema of which fields are actually required to publish in your marketplace or channel app. So here, you can see Facebook and Pinterest are calling out that they at least need images to be published. Normally, they would also need a title, but everything needs a title anyway. We find that this provides sort of an upfront on-save hook that saves the merchant time without having to jump between channel apps saying, like, fix the title here, fix the image here. All of those previously mentioned parts are components of our new resource feedback API. The shop-level feedback is available today in beta with required fields and product-specific feedback coming soon. The last and certainly not least part is the checkout API. This is where you actually get paid. So this is kind of like a high-level view of what our checkout API looks like. You create a checkout on behalf of the customer and the merchant. You can update that checkout object with shipping rates, customer info, billing details, things like that. You can actually, in step 2 here, retrieve existing customer accounts that you've stored so that the billing addresses are saved. And then finally, you vault the credit card using Shopify's payment processing system. We've partnered with Stripe to give you a secure way of vaulting those cards. And then finally, in step 4, you initiate a payment using your vaulted token that you created earlier. I've also called out Stripe here because we have built out a lot of our payment technologies in a partnership with Stripe. And we want to mention that coming soon is also the ability to use existing Stripe tokens with our checkout API. So if you build a marketplace application where you're already handling payments, you will be able to post those Stripe tokens to us directly. So that's pretty much the overview of our sales channels, the merchant and customer experience, and the APIs which power all of those experiences. We really hope that one day your app will be in the list of the channels that we showed earlier, because that'd be awesome. And we're really excited to see what you build with our platform. Thanks.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned, here's some of the resources. Take a picture, because I don't think the deck is shared or anything if you want to check that out. The Channels SDK comprises everything that allows you to build a channel, including resource feedback API, checkout API, and so on. The EA SDK is the embedded app development kit that we mentioned. The storefront API is the new GraphQL library. It's a little new, a little beta, but I definitely encourage you to check it out. And then finally, the custom storefront SDKs was also mentioned this morning. This is kind of a new app that allows you to build whatever custom storefront you want, whether it's for a single shop or for multiple shops. Additionally, we'll do some live Q&A now, and you can schedule office hours with both Helen and myself using the Unite app. So let's turn it over to Helen.
Yeah, they're all dev-focused.
Okay. Do you want me to take it?
Yes, take it.
Okay. So, do sales channel apps support Apple Pay or Android Pay? Absolutely. That was actually also cut off. So Apple Pay is supported today with Android Pay coming soon automatically in our checkout API. Is Shopify planning on building an integration into eBay? I don't personally know. If I did, I probably wouldn't be able to talk about future integrations, but yeah. So moving on. Can you add supplementary information required by the channel, such as categories using the EA SDK? No, that's an excellent question. So that's actually something we would add to the resource feedback API, where you would be able to tell Shopify what categories you're expecting. Additionally, we're working through that new version of our partners dashboard, which has a much better categorization feature, and I think you could also see some better matchmaking of apps and categories in that section there.
Oh, there's new questions.
None for you yet.
Okay.
How do you use the checkout API-enabled sales channels if your store uses another gateway? That is a tricky one. Right now, because of PCI compliance issues, for any kind of the advanced checkout scenarios, we really have to handle it on a case-by-case basis. It requires, an actual person to review what you're doing with the credit cards, how it's going to flow to Shopify. So you would definitely want to reach out to an account manager at Shopify and talk about payment processing scenarios like that. Oh, we have a question in the audience.
Hi, really cool stuff. I'm curious about, you said that for shipping charges, is it on the marketplace to develop shipping charges, or do you get shipping data from each merchant? And then if so, how does shipping get coordinated with multiple products from different merchants in a checkout?
That's a really good question. So right now we provide the tools in both the checkout API and the storefront API to pull and retrieve shipping rates. We don't provide any aggregate function yet to do like a multi-shop combined shipping, because we largely leave that to the marketplace to figure out how to do an aggregate order. But we definitely see that concern and are thinking about good ways to solve it. Excellent question. Wow, there's a ton.
I think there's someone over there.
Oh, please, yeah, let's do the live one.
Yeah, so you guys showed an email notification a couple times during your presentation. I was wondering if there's going to be an API open for editing that, both for channels and even regular apps. A lot of times the merchants ask for that too.
Yeah, not yet.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. Oh, got another one.
Hi. So, question about the difference between cart permalink and checkout API.
Oh, just what is the difference?
And what makes
Sure.
the experience better, and any recommendations?
Yeah, so giving an example, if you were using the checkout API, you could have a native checkout experience using Apple Pay on an iPhone in the mobile web. Cart permalinks will actually jump you out of your app into Shopify's checkout, which can also support Apple Pay. But essentially, by using checkout API directly, you're sort of circumventing that extra step. Yeah. How about Amazon payments? I do not have any data on Amazon payments yet. PayPal is here as well. So we do currently support PayPal using our regular checkout flow if the merchant has added that as a gateway. We don't have anything special like our partnership with Stripe for PayPal, though. One interesting question is, are there any plans for other API endpoints to transition to GraphQL? Any timeline? It's a great question because I love GraphQL and it's very dear to my heart. We're using the storefront API as our first sort of guinea pig to test how GraphQL will behave in the wild for us, to test how partner developers and app developers embrace GraphQL. So hopefully you will see eventually more of our APIs using GraphQL. If I have any say in it, certainly. Will Sales Channel support the new Promotions API? I was not aware there is a new Promotions API.
Are we talking about the discounts API?
Yeah, does anyone know if you meant the discounts API and price rules? Because they will support those, certainly. Are there conflicts with listings already on merchants' Amazon's account and also in Shopify? That's interesting. Typically, that will be handled by the Amazon Marketplace app that we use at Shopify. So the Sell on Amazon app is what actually brokers your listings and pushes them into Amazon. So it would be up to that app to handle any conflicts. And if that's kind of your sole channel into listing your products on Amazon, you wouldn't see any conflicts because the app knows which product is which. So I think we handled that if you're using our Amazon app. Is Checkout API available now, or is it still beta? Most of Checkout API is available now. You can literally hit that Channels SDK and jump into the Checkout API documentation. Parts of it are beta, and as I mentioned, the advanced integrations, you'll want to contact someone in Shopify, but it is available and out there. The Channels SDK itself, when will it be available? We mentioned this morning the new Partners dashboard comes out. I showed you that sort of giant toggle switch in the new Partners dashboard that turns your app into a channel. So that is part of our new Partners Dash, and the Partners Dash is rolling out over the next couple weeks to pretty much everyone. And that's when you'll be able to mark your app as a channel. Can a merchant set the publish date on a per product basis on channels like with the online store? That is an awesome question. Not yet. We absolutely recognize that as a need because you'll want to mark things as new in one channel, but not necessarily in another. Yes.
So my question is, so you showed the merchants sending their own confirmation email. So the end user, it sees as if they've made the transaction with Shopify Shop it themselves. Is there an option for a marketplace to not trigger that email, so it looks like they're sort of almost using it as a quasi drop shipping sort of coordination service? Are you seeing or planning to see that being used in that way?
So you can use other APIs such as the Orders API to create the orders yourself and bypass that notification phase. It's really our checkout process that is causing those emails to go out. So when they're checking out with Shopify, we'll basically always send them. But if you're actually building a marketplace, you would be able to use things like the Orders API and create one of those orders per shop.
Gotcha. So like in your example with the Facebook, you actually had the native Facebook checkout.
Yep.
So in that case, the Shopify merchant wouldn't necessarily send the order confirmation.
Correct. The merchant themselves can always still see that transaction, of course. And if they want, they could jump into Messenger and talk through it or whatever.
Okay.
Oh, I think there's one right in front. Did you have one? No.
I think we're out of, or do we have any more?
I
One
think
more?
that's pretty much it. Did we have any more in the audience? Okay.
I think there's one
I was
back
wondering,
there.
can you apply like a bulk discount for like the set of rules on the sales channel, or that should be done by the pricing?
Yeah, so there's kind of an interesting intersection between the new Price Rules API and apps that are channels. I'm not 100% familiar with how the Price Rules API works, but that should be something that we're handling. Yeah. So you're basically saying like, can I say for this channel, modify the price this much?
Right. I mean, like a channel might set up a rule like, we only sell your products if you lower down your price like 40%. So
Gotcha.
it's like a bulk discount selling. So whatever you sell on your website, you have to sell like 40% off on this, but you will have like a flash sale on our website in future, something like that.
Yeah.
So basically enforcing the customer that like you have to obey that rule.
Yeah, I mean in that situation, typically what I've seen is the channel themselves would set the pricing. So like if I were building an auction channel, you could use the price from Shopify as a base price and then increment the price yourself as people bid. Or you could maybe interact with the price rules. So there's like probably like 5 different ways to handle that scenario, I'd say.
There's
There's a bunch.
Wait, that man in the back has had his hand up for a while.
Just wondering, are there any transaction limits, transactions per second, that sort of thing, as in some of the other parts of the API with channels?
Good question. Shopify itself has throttling on API calls. That can be sort of based on your API client ID, but generally we've never really hit any limits when it comes to a partner developer building an app that's not like broken, basically. So we want you to succeed as much as you probably want it yourselves to succeed. And if you did hit some kind of throttling limit, we're very open to figuring out like a better way to do it or increasing the limit and things like that.
Okay, thanks.
Good question, though.
Could you please talk a little more about Stripe tokens being sent directly to Shopify? So how would that work?
Damn it, I didn't want to talk about that. So that's a total coming soon. There's no date on that whatsoever as a sort of caveat. But essentially, because Stripe is a PCI compliant payment processor, they're vaulting cards for a partner. We can actually, by using that shared token, initiate a billing action on that same token, theoretically. So if you were building a marketplace, say you're Amazon, and Amazon for some reason is using Stripe, you could send that payment request right to Shopify using that token.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And again, that's like a super kind of coming soon and not built, but we would like to get there.
Just want to know about the product display scope through the products API, whether I can specify to what channels it must be published to through the products add and edit endpoints. And is there a way to get a list of available channels through the API?
Right. So the first question is, can you see products available for your channel through the API?
No. Can I say if I add a new product through the API that it must only display on Facebook?
Oh, interesting. Yes, you can right now. It's not easy. You can actually see like the Facebook app ID and do that. We're trying to figure out a better way to allow you to do that as a partner developer. So most apps and channels, we would like to scope their access to themselves, right? Like you don't want Facebook seeing what's being sold on Amazon. So we are working on a better permission system that lets certain apps, for example, an importing app, things like that, request from the merchant sort of a global scope across the channels to see what products are available per channel, if that makes sense. But like by default, I don't think apps would be able to do that. Then the second part is, can you create a product and say which channel it's on? I think that's kind of the same answer. We do want like a better scope that says, me as an app requires all the publishing information for all the channels available.
Sort of, is there an endpoint to give me a list of all available channels?
Not as of yet.
Okay.
Not as
Thanks.
of yet.
Just a quick question here. Sorry, like imagine I have one product listing with one certain product image, and then you recommend me to use that product image throughout different channels. Would you modify a product listing in any way, or would you just recommend to use it throughout different channels regardless their image requirements?
Yeah, that's tricky. I would say for now, I would personally recommend just using the same image. I know it can be a little tricky, like Amazon might want models for clothing, things like that. So right now our current recommendation is the one image for the product. Yeah.
Well, some channels have very unique kind of product images requirements, Amazon being one of them.
Yeah.
So we would recommend uploading a different type of image for that.
Yeah.
And you can kind of select which one you would use for that particular channel.
But for now, would you still recommend merchants to push their listings without actually validating their image requirements matching?
Good question. I would say yes. I mean, Amazon, the image requirements for Amazon specifically is like a manual process, and they often do just accept the images without the requirements. Facebook is much more strict. So it's almost easier to start with the image you have if you're small and don't have time to do another photo shoot for more images. But because this is like very much on Facebook and Amazon's requirements, I have no idea how how fast and loose they would play with those images.
I think it would be easier. However, for certain channels, it might be better for you to optimize your imagery based on that channel. So
Yes.
Pinterest is more of a lifestyle type of network, and they would respond better to, for example, an image of a girl wearing a dress as opposed to a dress, just on a white background.
Exactly.
So you could use that as an opportunity to educate your merchant a little bit more about how to optimize your channel.
Yeah.
But I suppose by default it would be easier if the merchant used the same products all the way across the board, but it's not necessarily the best experience for the end consumer.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And back to Helen's example earlier, like showing Facebook. Facebook has all these videos and things on how to optimize using them as a channel, and that's super important. Like if you're building a channel, absolutely educate the merchants on how to use it effectively. Is there any more? I don't think so. Hands.
Okay, great.
Great.
Now we have a
Well,
break.
thanks again, everyone. Yeah.
All right, thank you.